So the very first question we have here, some of them aren't questions, but I'm going to try and phrase them as such. This one is, I think, directed best at Jackson. So any advice or tips for gut health improvement?
Why the fuck would that be best targeted to me?
Don't know. Well, you're the nutrition guy here.
You've got the biggest gut, that's why.
Yeah. You're the most
fat ass.
Damn.
Like we've chatted a bit about this off air, but I do think that this whole gut health thing is a little bit overhyped and borderline of a fad that's entered the fitness industry. And I dare say that in a few years, it probably would have left the fitness industry just like a lot of the other fads. Because the fact is, like, some fantastic physiques, like the physiques that we're pushing out these days, like at the same time that we've seen this insurgence of gut health supplements and gut health routines and things like that, the physiques aren't any better. And I dare say the health parameters aren't any better than they were sort of 10 years ago when we were just training and trying to eat healthy and things like that. So when it comes to like gut health supplements, there really isn't anything that I'm prepared to say is worth our time. Some people might disagree with me, but I just think that in the infancy of the research and what we do know, there isn't a whole lot there just yet. And I know a lot of people like to talk about probiotics and things like that, but when you look at when you actually truly look into the research and look beyond what the back of the label of these products says, sometimes consuming these probiotics can even have negative consequences on gut health. So it's gut health isn't something that I put massive emphasis on when I'm working with clients. Like, I will tend to just focus on the big rocks, and that's the diet. So as long as you've got a balanced diet where you're consuming an ample amount of plant material and you're not overloading on, if it fits in macros style sugar alcohols and quest bars and things like that, which can be at a detriment of the gut health. That's probably the biggest change that I would say has been recently, is this insurgence of like sugar alcohol loaded products and like calorie friendly foods that people start trying to work into their macros now. I think that's probably been the biggest change, and that's, if anything, is one of the things that we should be looking at when we're trying to sort of maintain or improve our gut health, is potentially look at the intake of these sort of commercial processed products that we're consuming. A lot of konjac noodles, a lot of quest bars, things like that. Tend to be, when I do see a client with gut health issues or gut discomfort or digestive discomfort, usually they are consuming a fair bit of those things, and just removing them is enough to sort of get a whole lot of relief. But if you're not consuming those things, or if you're just consuming them every now and again, which is my advice, then as long as you're getting ample amount of plant material from fruits and veggies and whole grains in your diet, I really don't think that there's much else that we should be worrying on. And there's certainly a lot of other things that we should be putting more focus on.
Cool. Thank you. I think that's a concise answer.
I'd like to hear Hattie's opinion though, because I feel like she's going to disagree with me a bit.
So
I'm going to punch you through the screen.
No. So look, my advice is like what I say to my girls is, get a variety of fruits and vegetables into your diet. Like the base of our nutrition should be 80% wholesome, unprocessed food. That's what I think is a sustainable and a balanced diet. Yeah. And variety coming in. Like the downfall of people, on diet plans is that we limit the available food and variety of food that comes into the gut, and we then create food intolerances over time, or can do. I've got a product. It's Gut Performance. It is for the gut, and it's an active broad spectrum prebiotic. It's a prebiotic. So again, it's fiber based, and what we've found with the prebiotic is that it's helped manage inflammation, and it was actually originally developed for people with diabetes. And we saw huge improvements in their blood sugar levels from the prebiotic managing the inflammation in the gut. So I think that I mean, I take it every day, and it's just to complement. I have an amazing diet. I've got a diet that's very balanced, very healthy, and a lot of variety. And it's just to complement. It's not to band-aid. But again, if you have gut issues, you should be looking at seeing a specialist. And that's would be my absolute advice. Like if you actually have gut issues.
Would you agree that though, if you are adhering to your recommendations around sort of plant material in the diet and unprocessed foods, would you agree that we just shouldn't have an inflamed gut though anyway? Otherwise, why would we have an inflamed gut?
Can you say it again for me?
I said, would you agree that if we were adhering to your recommendations around plant material and unprocessed foods, would you agree that we shouldn't have an inflamed gut though anyway?
Yeah, 100%.
So following on from that, is there much utility in taking a supplement if you don't have an inflamed gut?
If you don't have any issues, then you don't need to take anything.
Yeah, I think that's the key there though. Like there's this perception out there in our fitness industry that everyone needs to be taking gut health supplements. And what I'm just trying to say there is if you don't have any underlying issues, and if you're doing a reasonably approached diet, then there's not that much need for these things.
Yeah, I think that the message there is basically supplements are exactly that, and they should only be used supplementary to a very well balanced diet. I think in my experience, the only time people ever seem to really have gut health issues is when they're making these drastic adjustments to their diet, either cutting out entire food groups for extended periods of times, or like, doing things that are, say, more borderline extreme. And then, surprise, surprise, the way they feel is a little bit abnormal. I think, we're all on the same page there in terms of a good, well-balanced, healthy diet includes a variety of foods. If you're excluding foods for religious or ethical reasons, or whatever other reason, that's obviously a little bit of a different story. And then there may be the need to supplement further. But if you can, you should try and eat from a variety of food sources.
Yeah, I think people really underestimate how powerful food is.
Yep. Preach it. All right, next question. This one is directed to the most handsome person on the call over here. Thank you, naturally. So the reason I've directed to myself is just my personal and probably more professional experience dealing with this type of matter, but any advice on handling or managing lower back issues? So this question came up to Jackson a couple of times. As Jacob mentioned earlier on the call, throughout my lifting career, I've had various injuries and stuff like that. I've had nagging back issues to the point where I've been completely incapable of putting my own socks on in the morning. Back issues can be very debilitating, and I think that it's very hard to give general advice or recommendations on how anyone should deal with a back issue. I think the best way to handle any injury is obviously first, if it's impacting your training, firstly adjust training and go and seek a professional or an external allied health professional's input and advice. Make sure it's someone that you trust. There's definitely practitioners out there who are just after your money and they're not necessarily looking out for you and your best interests. If training is something that's important to you, if you're an athlete who competes in a specific sport that might have specific requirements, say like powerlifting or weightlifting, and you're experiencing back issues, if you want to persist with those sports, you have to, I guess, acknowledge that back pain and the exposure to those types of issues are part and parcel to a degree when we are experiencing like high axial loading or loads getting really high and we're putting our body under these really strenuous positions and situations. But what I will say, drawing on my own personal and professional experience, when you do have back issues, oftentimes, in my personal back issue history, there's always been kind of signs and signals leading up to we'll call them events or these incidences where I've had a flare up and that's been, quite impactful. I think, Hattie mentioned earlier, really managing your training volume and recovery is very important. We all know that, and it's something that everyone should be advocating. So if you're experiencing ongoing back issues, it might be worth looking at the type of work that you're doing and whether or not that is appropriate, and you can recover adequately. Looking at other stresses in your life, remembering training is a stress on the body. So if you're experiencing financial stress, relationship stress, work stress, family stress, whatever it might be, they can manifest physically. Making sure that you're physically and psychologically prepared to train every time you go into the gym. If you're someone who experiences issues, any injury, any niggle, and you find that it's like when it flares up, it can be quite bad, developing your own routine, again, born from your personal experience and what feels good for you and works for you, plus, any advice or recommendations from a practitioner in terms of like, developing your own rehab or, pre-exercise warm-up routine to make sure you are adequately physically prepared and psychologically prepared to lift. And the last thing I'll say is injuries happen. They suck. They very much do suck, but they do happen. And whilst we can do our absolute best to avoid them and minimize them and try and, make sure they don't impact our life and our training all that much, when they do happen, just try and, do what you can to allow yourself to recover. Don't push it. Don't overdo it. Seek, professional help. A lot of these kind of non-super serious soft tissue injuries will resolve themselves quite quickly in a couple of days to maybe a couple of weeks if it's more serious. Oftentimes it's more the psychological stress and the fear of the injury coming back and this like mental apprehension towards, certain movements, and kind of like you feel like it's going to happen again at any point in time. But that psychological injury, that's what lasts longer than often the physical, that kind of dread of, I have heavy deadlifts today, or I'm heavy squats, or I've got some exercise that really jacks my back up. Is today going to be the day, right? The physical injury is probably well and truly gone. It's been months between injuries, but that kind of nagging kind of devil on your shoulder is always there when you have ongoing back issues. So I think, mentally backing yourself, if you don't think you're going to lift it safely or confidently, or if you think you're going to get injured, maybe adjust the load, maybe adjust what you're doing, just so you have a little bit more confidence. Yeah.
I've got some additional stuff there, a little bit more technical, I guess. But William Prinitus, in his book of what's called, it's like athletic training principles of athletic training. Anyway, he describes injury as mechanical injury force, which is like applied to any part of the body and results in harmful disturbance. And the two important words here are in function or structure, right? So with that in mind, injuries can be either structural, like a herniated disc in relation to this question. And that's obviously very different to an injury which impacts function, because we know injury is and pain science is a very complex phenomena. There's, the biopsychosocial model, which, sort of denotes that there are many different facets that contribute to pain, which could be perceived as an injury. And I think in relation to powerlifting, bodybuilding style strength training, structural injuries aren't that common. There's research, back in, I think it was like Asa or someone in 2017. Anyway, they found that injury rates in powerlifting and bodybuilding basically, like 1 to 5 injuries per 1,000 hours in powerlifting, and something like 0.24 to 1 injury per 1,000 hours in bodybuilding. So injury rates are pretty low, but I think when you do have a functional related injury, so that pain is impairing your ability to move or whatnot, I think load management is the most important thing. Whether it's reducing the weight on the bar, doing less volume, your volume load. So the overall work that you're doing is oftentimes the solution to rehabilitation. But we have a lot of people who don't want to do that. They don't want to squat, 30% of their 1 rep max, at an RP 5 for a week or two, because they're going to lose their gains, and we have that, dichotomous type thinking where it's all or nothing. If I can't squat my, max lifts or train in a way that I need to progress, I might as well not train at all. But the reality is oftentimes when you decrease volume load, which volume load can be defined as reps times sets times load, but also distance traveled. When you take into account those 4 variables, in summation, if you can manage that, usually we're able to start lifting, and that will obviously decrease the stress on whatever structures are being stressed, and it'll lower your experience of pain, because you're not going to be pushed into positions where structurally they can't tolerate that, or it's not going to be a load that you are not, acclimated to tolerating yet. So load tolerance is a huge one there. And that's really all I've got to add to Sam's anecdote.
Cool. Next question. Dealing with nerves before stepping on stage. Hattie, we're going to direct that one to you.
Something that I always practice in the lead up to getting on stage is visualizing myself on stage. So, I've done many shows, so I know the sound of the MC, I know what the stage looks like, and I visualize that. So I almost embody what it feels like. I'll notice the nerves come up. I'll notice the hairs on my arms stand up. And so when it comes to actually executing, I'm familiar with the environment. And in a way, it's like I invite the nerves. I've been competing for 8 years. Well, I've been competing my whole life, and I still remember those nerves when I was a gymnast and to when I was getting on stage. They're going to be there, right? Because you care. You're doing something that you've worked so fucking hard for such a long period of time. It's been a goal that you've set for yourself for such a long time. Embrace the nerves. They're there to bring on the experience, but just notice them. Don't ride with them. Ride with the excitement. Take deep breaths. Like I said, visualize yourself in the lead up, daily practices. Visualize yourself when you're doing your posing routine. And again, experience makes things a little bit easier. But I'm going to guess that, before these guys do a powerlifting meet, before Jackson, you get into the ring, before any kind of competition, nerves are going to be there because, it's something that you've been working towards. So I guess learn to embrace it, 10 deep breaths, slow yourself down, and use visualization as an awesome tool to execute.
As a personal trainer myself for nearly 10 years, it has been hard to access resources that are not only comprehensive, up to date, but practical and useful in helping me get better results with my clients. And that's why I created the JPS Mentorship Program. I started mentoring coaches around 5 years ago, where I conducted biannual courses for over 12 weeks with lectures on a Tuesday and Thursday night. As demand started to increase, I soon realized that it was time to move this course online, and that's what I've done with the help of my team at JPS and our contributors to the mentorship program, Brian Miner, Danny Lennon, James Krieger, Mike Israetel, Chris Bison, Dr. Jake Lenarden, and many more. It's been a very humbling experience over the past few years to see an overwhelming number of coaches join our online mentorship course, and I'm excited to continue to offer what I see to be one of the most comprehensive and informative resources available for coaches online. Our 12-week course is designed not only to give you the information and knowledge that you need to become an evidence-based practitioner who stands out above the rest, but to be able to give you the tools and practical tidbits that you can apply immediately to your coaching to get the best results you can for your clients and have a fruitful and successful career in the fitness industry. If you're interested in joining the online mentorship course, click the link in our bio, and I hope to see you there.
Love that. Great answer. Next. So when, no, we're not going to answer that one. Okay. Jacob, max per body single session training volume per body part. So okay. I think how much training volume should we direct at one single body part in a single training session?
Yeah. Well, at the moment it's looking to be around the 8 to 10 sets per body part per training session. But that's going to depend significantly on the type of movements that you're doing and the overall stimulus and the fatigue of those sets. So for example, if you were to do 10 sets of squats, I would say that that would probably, especially if it's, you know, within a couple of reps of failure and you're over, say, 75% 1 rep max in terms of loading, I would say that your ability to recover from that, or at least see some significant hypertrophy to the degree that you're able to then train hard within a couple of days, you know, within say 3 to 5 days. It could be too much for some people. But again, if you balance that volume out with, you know, some less fatiguing exercises that apply more direct stimulus, such as like a leg extension, and you do some squats and maybe some lunges in there, I don't see why you wouldn't be able to do 11 sets or 12 sets, because I think whilst we're going to get the stress and what that's going to lead to a degradation in performance before we recover and see that super compensatory effect after the workout, I think the more stimulus we can apply and recover from, the more growth we'll get. The problem we run into is that a lot of people are training with moderate to high frequencies, so training each muscle group 2 to 3 times a week. And if they're doing so and they're doing over 10 sets per session per body part, it's pretty unlikely that they're going to be recovered if they're training hard enough by their next session, which might be in a few days' time. And this is why bro splits do work as well, because we used to have blokes doing 20 to 30 sets for a muscle group, but they'd only train it once a week. So they had that full 7 days to get that super compensatory effect before they were able to train the muscle group again. Whereas now what we've seen, due to the evidence-based science movement, is people are training more frequently, they're getting less volume per workout, and we've had to then split that weekly volume up across more workouts. But again, I think anywhere from say 8 to 12 sets per workout per muscle group is usually a good range. It's going to depend on, as I said, the exercises that you use and the overall, I guess, stress cost of those exercises.
Thank you very much.
Anything you want to add, Jackson?
Yeah.
Hey?
Anything you want to add,
Jackson?
No, like those recommendations, pretty much smack bang with what I'm doing at the moment. So I'm doing like roughly 12 to 14 sets per session. I'm training a muscle group once every 5 days.
Yeah.
Like a 4-day on, 1 day off, and then repeat. And like for some people, like 12 or 14 sets might not sound like lots, but it's usually the people that are just going in and doing like those pump sets and leaving a bunch of reps in the tank at each set and things like that. Like if you are training like that, then yeah, you can get away with doing 20 sets per session and not feeling completely jammed. But if your sets are truly working sets and you're taking yourself to your limit or very close to, 12 to 14, 10 to 14 sets per session should be ample. Should be definitely like there's some of my sessions, like I get to like, I am in a deficit now, so recovery capabilities are compromised a little bit. But those last few sets of the session, like I'm smoked. Like it's taking a little bit of the stuff from the basement to get me over the line with those last few sets.
I think you touched on a good point there, Jackson. You can't look at any variable in isolation to draw hard and fast conclusions as to what you should and shouldn't do. Because if you're training at an RPE, we know there's a dose-response relationship with training volume. So more volume is better until we start to see plateau and regression. And it's anywhere from around, 20 sets per week, per muscle group that we start to see that. But at the same time, if your intensity is low, because remember, volume is the dose of the stress and intensity is the stimulus essentially. So if the intensity is low, you're training, 4 to 5 reps from failure, you'll need to do more volume to compensate for less stimulus per set by doing more sets to get a sufficient amount of stimulus. So you could do 30 to 40 sets per week, per muscle group, if you're training very far from failure. And as Jackson said, they're like pump and fluff sets. If you're training at a really high intensity, and you're doing, like, say, for example, 1 rep maxes, well, you aren't going to be able to do that 2 to 3 times a week. You might be able to do that once every 7, 10, 14 days because the intensity is so high. So I think when it comes to looking at volume recommendations, whether it's per session or per week, we really need to factor in intensity as well as frequency. So the time component between exposures to that stimulus. And when you have a more holistic view, you can really start to dial in, where your volume requirements lie. And a good proxy for that is simply, am I recovering from one session to the next? If so, good. Is my performance improving? And am I getting bigger? If so, keep doing that. If you stop recovering, address factors like sleep, nutrition. Jackson pointed out he's in a deficit. So if you're dieting, you start, losing weight, well, that might impact your ability to recover. So you dial volume down. If you're in surplus, things are going great. You're recovering fine. Add a little bit more if you plateau. So I think, you need to have a really holistic view. And too often people look at these things, through a quite myopic lens and only think about volume, but it's more than that.
Cool. All right. We're going to do one more question, then we're going to go through the rapid fire. Advice on training and being when you are sick or unwell. I'm going to tackle this one. I did discuss it very briefly at the start when we were off air. I think when you're sick or unwell, there's a lot of individuals out there who are kind of like team no days off, let's train, like sweat it out, stuff like that. Being sick is, a compromisation of the immune system. Basically, it's an extra stress, and it's something that you need to recover from and heal and allow yourself the adequate time to return to, say, baseline functions. I certainly think that there is some instances where, like, sickness, or you're maybe a little bit under the weather and you can probably go and train and it's not going to cause too many issues. But training through sickness is not something that I would ever really advocate, where living in a global pandemic. So again, you have to consider the fact that you may be exposing other people to also making them sick. But yeah, generally speaking, if you're unwell, you've got a cold or a flu, you're probably just better off focusing on rest and recovery, giving your body the chance to get back to where it should normally be, and then returning to the gym. Like, what COVID taught us one thing, a few days off the gyms, you're not going to lose all of your gains in a very short period of time. You might lose a little bit of fitness in, the first few days, and then, you're not really losing much muscle mass for 1 to 2 weeks. Hopefully you're prioritizing eating and rest and recovery during that time. So you're going to be doing, sufficient amount to give yourself the resources to preserve some of those adaptations you have worked hard for. But yeah, if you're really sick, I don't think it's a positive mindset to go into the gym and try and smash yourself to kind of, sweat it out, because that's not how recovery from an illness necessarily works. Jacob, do you have anything that you would like to add?
Just prioritize your health. It is the foundation of fitness. And if you're sick, you're not going to be able to train, or at least in any manner that is going to be productive. So focus on your health and do whatever you got to do to feel better and obviously recover from whatever ailment you have. And then, the time course for decay of, muscle and strength is quite long, right? It's like, you lose strength, maybe, 2 to 3 weeks, muscle mass, depending on, whether or not you train at all, but it can hang around for up to a month. Jackson and I spoke about this a while ago, in other portal discussions related to lockdown and stuff, but it's like muscle tissue hangs around for up to a month, without any significant loss in lean mass. So just rest, just recover, and then you'll be fine.
Cool. All right. Let's do some rapid fire questions. Which exercise do you dislike? Hattie, we're going to start with you.
Hate training abs.
Hate training abs. Jacob.
Least favorite exercise? Oh, probably. That's a good question. I actually don't know. I don't really dislike an exercise. I think there are some that I just like more. But maybe calves. Calves. We'll say calves. I don't like training calves.
Cool. Jackson. Well, flush Jackson.
Where'd I go?
Jackson doesn't like training legs. That's why they're so small.
That's it.
My legs are going to kick your ass when you see him next.
Jackson, exercise you dislike training.
Hate barbell bicep curls. I never do them because they hurt my wrists and my forearm. Yeah. And I hate lying hamstring curls.
Oh, interesting.
Jackson, your forearms will be carrying a lot of residual fatigue from all your extracurricular activities at home.
That's it.
You think if you lowered the volume and frequency of, your anime porn, you'd be able to do some barbell curls without any issues?
Hey, ask yourself where I'm living.
Forearms.
Happy ending.
Jackson, no one will appreciate your response, but it was actually really good. It was good.
Trying to think of what my least favorite exercise is. I think I fucking hate good mornings. I hate having a good morning. I don't like the way they feel. I don't like having like a bar on your back and like just bending over like an RDL. It's like,
what a shit name. Hey, it's not a good morning.
It's like, it's literally the worst thing you could do.
A good morning, bowl of cereal and some cartoons. That's
yes.
You're pretty experienced with having to bend over and getting a heavy load on your back, aren't you?
I'm trying to visualize this.
All right, let's go. Next question. I've got another call in a minute. Who do you admire in the fitness industry?
Not Jackson.
Hattie, go first. Just a name.
Rachel Dillon.
Jacob.
Probably Eric Helms and Dr. Mike.
Cool. That was 2 names, but sure. Jackson.
I'm going to say this one because it's fresh on my mind. And rest in peace, John Meadows.
Yeah. R.I.P. Mine, I think Greg Knuckles.
He's been quiet, hasn't he?
Yeah, but he just does his thing. Like,
what's he been doing?
He's on the journey to the stage. He's dieting.
Imagine he came out to shred it. Greg, I hope one day.
I messaged him and I asked him, I'm like, are you actually competing? He's like, no, it's just a joke. He's just like dieting for fat loss and he's like slowly losing weight. It's really cool. Anyway, when dieting for a physique comp, how do you assess whether you're ready for stage? Well, frankly, you should look at a certain level of leanness and be ready. You should be able to tell, I would think. That's my answer. Jackson.
How do you know if you're stage ready?
Yeah, you just know.
If you're truly stage ready, like as a guy, like there are some exclusions if you have just like very unusual body fat storage. But if you've got some lines in your ass as a guy, that's a pretty good indication that the fat's gone. And generally for females, like generally I'll look at like the glute ham tie. Like you're not going to expect them to have shredded glutes, but if you've got that nice separation between the glute and the hamstring, usually that's how I know that a girl is pretty close to being ready.
Yeah. Cool. Hattie,
depending on the
queen.
Depending on the category, are they aligned with the category guides for the federation that they're chosen for? But yeah, I mean, we hold a lot more fat around the lower body, so the lower body is generally going to be a telltale. Yeah, they're ready, or no, they still need a couple more weeks. So yeah, the glute ham tie-in and also quadriceps. What's happening at the quads?
Cool. All right, Jacob.
Yeah, pretty much echo what Jackson and Hattie said there. Obviously, it's category dependent. But I think if you're an athlete, how do you know if you're ready? You shouldn't be too concerned unless you're coaching yourself. You shouldn't be too worried about what you think. You should listen to your coach and your network around you. And if they think you're ready and you trust them and they've got a good eye for this and they're not just blowing smoke up your ass, they're giving you sound advice, they'll tell you when you're ready or if you're not ready. I think it gets to a certain point in a contest prep where your subjective brain just takes over and you can't see things objectively anymore. So I think that you're probably the worst person to try and determine whether or not you're ready, if you're actually ready. There you go.
Yeah. All right. Have you ever injured someone during intercourse?
Hattie,
I'm not prepared to say. Hattie will.
No, I haven't. I have injured myself though.
Ah.
But I haven't injured someone else.
One of my clients had a really fucking brutal injury. Tore his banjo string. Not good. I actually had to have surgery. Yeah, legit.
What were they doing?
Playing banjo. Obviously. Nah, I don't know. Just snapped on him.
That's horrible. Let's not talk
banjo
about
string,
that.
banjo cord. I don't think not an injury. No, I don't believe so. Pretty vanilla.
Jackson?
Are we just laying it all out on the table here?
If you want.
Don't have to.
Like this wasn't intercourse, but was with a girl doing some things with the hands in certain places, and like lights were all off, and like getting like very lubricated, very wet, like to the point of like a little bit too wet, and then I was like, okay, like, and she hadn't said anything. I was like, nah, something's not right here. So like, I got up and turned the light on, and just like blood everywhere, like all like down, like she wasn't in pain or anything, but like
that was it.
Literally, like my whole stomach, like legs, hair, blood everywhere, sheets destroyed. So that was kind of weird.
Gee whiz.
Yeah.
All right, let's move on from there.
Next. Okay.
That's a very somber note to end on.
Last two questions. This one's just Hattie. Name 3 anime. You've had over an hour and a half now to come up with 3. There's been probably a couple mentioned throughout.
Well, there actually hasn't. Hey, Jackson, move your hands. What does it say on your? What does that say on your t-shirt? Naruto.
Yeah, there you go. There's one.
Hattie.
One says 1. Can you read it?
Primitive.
I'm not going to give. No, it's above it in the little. I'm not going to come any closer to the camera because I don't want you to like just give them to you.
No, I don't know any.
Hattie can't answer 3 or give us 3 animes.
Guys, roaster.
Very disappointing.
Blaster.
All right, and the last one to cap it off. Any foods you don't like to eat? Raw tomato. Although, as I'm in prep, I did eat a raw cherry tomato the other day, just because it was there and on the plate, and I was like, this isn't so bad. So I'm coming around to it after 28 years.
There you go.
Maybe.
Pate. Yeah. Pate.
Okay, yeah.
Okay. Jackson, what about you?
Any like weird, like high-end seafood, like oysters, mussels.
Yeah, I don't like.
Oh, really?
No.
They're an aphrodisiac. They're gross. They're kind of like. Jacob, yours?
Aniseed. Anything aniseed, anchovies, and
multiple foods. Jacob's gonna reel off all the foods he hates.
Yeah,
he's like, "Whoa, we've got time."
Coming to like olives, but yeah,
olives aren't too bad. They've got a really strong taste. I find like taking them off the pizza and you still have like the aftertaste of the olive. That's not that bad.
No, but the olive itself is what I'm talking about.
Yeah, but I think I'm coming around to stuff. Olives on pizzas sounds pretty good to me.
I like it when I'm dieting. It's like the salt, like
saltiness. Yeah,
because they're not super palatable as well. You know that like when you eat them, you're not going to overeat them, but you get that, you know, mastication and it feels like you're eating something. I can see that, Jackson. Kind of like pickled vegetables when you dine.
Pickled stuff's great. Pickled stuff's elite.
I'm doing cucumbers with a load of mustard on them at the moment.
Yeah.
Like,
Right.
No wonder.
I'm still no one dieting here is the point of adding the what did you used to add, Jacob? The carnitine to celery. Yeah. That's where you've hit rock bottom. I was telling Hattie before though, Jackson, I've been adding cauliflower rice to my oats as a good way to volumize it, and it's actually like fine, like very minimal flavor. If you get like the fine stuff, it like blends in really well. What's
the ratio that you use? I've never done this before.
So I've been like, today I had like 60 grams of oats, and then I just used probably like 4-ish to 1 water on that. Then I just microwave the cauliflower rice separately in a little container. I might just do like 2 to 1 there, and then you can just add some more water and stuff.
Yeah, true.
But yeah, anyway, cool. Well, I think that's everything for today. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Hattie, for joining us. We really appreciate it. Until next time.
Yeah.
Stay woke, Hattie. That's it. We'll see you in October.
See you in October.
You have plenty of research to do on anime between now and then to not disappoint us again.
Oh, is Jackson coming?
Jackson's in Bali.
Oh, he's in Bali.
He won't be able to get home. Not even by October.
Come visit Bali, guys. I'll be here.
See you guys.
See you guys.
For the call. Appreciate your time.
Bye.
Bye.